How was fluoride introduced, and what's the history of fluoride?
Problem is, the anti-fluoride people will give you one story, and the pro-fluoride people will give you another story. What I've read, especially from Chris Bryson's book, is it had a lot to do with Alcoa in America in the 1930s, when they were by far the biggest fluoride producer. Because in the processing of aluminium, like today with the processing of phosphate fertiliser, there are two gases that are emitted, and they're trapped. I mean, they're captured by the scrubbing process, and that's when you get hexafluorosilicic acid, which is one of the most poisonous substances.
And this from manufacturing fertilizers.
Well, back then it was from manufacturing aluminium, and it still occurs in the aluminium manufacturing process. So and they were not producing, it was a byproduct, tons of this hexafluorosilicic acid, and they didn't know what to do with it. The director, the founding shareholder of Alcoa, was also head of Treasury, US Treasury, which was responsible for the US health.
So he cooked this whole
He proposed that fluoride was good to put in the water, and he went to a scientist in his own laboratory and said, I think you should conduct a study on rats and see if it improves their teeth. And this guy said, oh, that's interesting. They've already done a study 6 years ago, in the 1928 or something, and it showed that fluoridation chemicals severely damaged the teeth of the rats. And he goes, okay. So he does this study, and he observes that it has a very good impact on the rat's teeth. Purely observation. There's no science involved. And as a result of that, they decide to conduct much better scientific studies that were proposed to go from 1945 to 1955. In 1949 or 1950, before the studies were anywhere near complete, they said, oh, look, it doesn't matter, we believe this works. And then they changed that to, we know this works. Let's do it anyway. And there were some preliminary studies released from Trendley Dean, who's conducting these studies in America, and they were showing dramatic reduction in tooth decay. So on that basis, the Public Health Service spent $2 million, which back in that day is a huge amount, promoting and advertising this new chemical as a revolutionary breakthrough in protecting our teeth. And the public just loved it. So they started fluoridating. In 1951, Grand Rapids in Michigan became the first city to add fluoridation chemicals to the drinking water. Those studies were never completed. No, they were completed, and they showed there isn't any difference between fluoridated and non-fluoridated. But that was completely ignored. And then in the 1960s or 70s, a Swiss scientist called Zuckerberger went back and examined all the data of Dean's studies and found out it was fraudulent, because there were 250 cities in America that he had all the data from available, hundreds of thousands of dental records based on no fluoride in the water and medium to high levels of natural fluoride. So it's a really good comparison, scientific comparison. There were 250 cities. Dean only selected 21 cities. And the reason was he only selected the cities that supported his argument. Wow. And he testified this in court, that it was not valid. In other words, it was fraudulent. I mean, that word is strong, but it was fraudulent. And he repeated these studies, and he said there is over the 250 cities, and he said there's no difference. The only correlation is between fluoridation and dental fluorosis, which is damaging of the teeth. And today, that is still ignored by our health authorities.
How much do you think the people introducing fluoride stand to gain? as in like when when they started selling fluoride, like in terms of financial profit, like how much are they making?
I definitely don't think it's 100% about corporate profits,
Okay.
but there was definitely, that's the foundation of this whole stupid belief system, is this corporate greed, no doubt about it. But you're hooking into a major psychological issue, and that is people like the idea of fluoride. It was easy to sell fluoride then, it is easier to sell fluoride now because it covers up our fear. And one of the biggest fears we have is going to a dentist, receiving injections, and having our teeth drilled and filled. And if we are sold this magical substance that's put in our water that doesn't taste, it doesn't smell, it doesn't cost anything, above all, it doesn't cost anything, you can't see it, and it protects your teeth, and they keep saying it's safe and effective, well, why wouldn't anyone believe in that? They don't have to do anything. It doesn't cost anything. Fantastic. So there's this predisposition to believe in it, without questioning, especially when a scientist or a doctor or a dentist tells you it's totally safe and effective. Why wouldn't you believe them? But on top of that, to get back when it first started, in addition to that corporate greed and corporate corruption, the sugar, which is another element of corruption, is the sugar industry, which then and again today does not want to see sugar consumption drop. And sugar is the cause of tooth decay, or is one of the major causes of tooth decay.
Yeah.
They invested a huge amount of money in fluoride. They love the idea of fluoride, obviously, because it was a way for them not to reduce sugar consumption. So they were, we don't know, you can't find out the records, but there was definite sponsorship from the United States Sugar Co-op, which represented 130 major sugar producers. We're talking about, even back then, billion-dollar industry. So they were strong endorsers and promoters of fluoridation right from day zero, and they still are today. I mean, the sugar industry is a major industry.
That's crazy.
The Public Health Service loved it, and then in the early days, the doctors and dentists heard about it and became official policy, and then it was embraced, and it's become more and more solidified, the belief system. And unfortunately, these scientists go out looking for evidence to support their view, and they'll use anything. They'll use the weakest, most unreliable science. It's amazing. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's from a human psychology point of view, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Similar things have been done, right? Like for other kinds of, evils in this world. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, this is one example, but there's probably some other, thing with a similar origin. So I don't know, maybe, I don't know, there's just a lot of different issues in the world that
Similar.
have a really, the root cause is just some kind of lack of care, or,
Well, I reckon the whole meat industry is kind of similar. People like eating meat.
Yeah.
So it was easy for the meat industry to sell this whole protein thing 50 years ago, 70 years ago.
Sure.
Because people love eating meat.
Sure.
It's a similar kind of psychology, and changing that cultural belief is really difficult.
Yeah.
People don't want to hear it.